It is time again for another Riley's Retro event, this time in the 2011 Worlds format. 2011 bridged black and white with Heart Gold and Soul Silver cards, and was a format ruled by prime Pokemon like Yanmega and Magnezone, among many others. We had 11 players competing in this event, giving us 4 action-packed rounds of Swiss before a top 4 cut, with all matches being best of 1. This was a casual showcase held at Milwaukee Regionals this past May, featuring players with varying levels of experience in the format, all gathering for the purpose of enjoying some retro Pokemon together. Hello and welcome to round 1 of the Riley's Retro 2011 showcase that I held at Milwaukee Regionals this past month. And we have a dandy of a match for you folks this time. We have Evan on the top playing this Machamp Donphan Prime deck up against Kyle on the bottom playing the Stage 1's deck. And this is actually a matchup of 2 fellow YouTube creators, so we have some exciting players in this one, exciting decks. And we are getting into the beginning of this one. Of course, this is 2011 Worlds format rules, so everybody gets set up first, then you will flip to decide who goes first, as you see here. And in this format, you are able to play everything going first. All trainers are available to be played, and you are able to attack going first as well. So this is a no restrictions on your first turn of the game, but we do have these slow rare candy rules. The current rare candy rules is the main difference between some of our newer formats. And we saw a quick turn here from Kyle, just going to see that Pokemon communication, getting out another Yanma on the bench, and off to Evan's turn, also firing off a Pokemon communication. And Evan wants to establish some of these Machops early, also might need to get something like a Cleffa, which we will be seeing plenty of as this tournament goes on. We will be seeing that Cleffa using the Eek attack to shuffle your hand back into your deck and draw 6 cards. And then, of course, this is one of the most notorious coin flip formats with the baby coin flips on that Cleffa, things like that Tyrogue as well. We might see come up in this format. Also Pokemon reversals, which was the only real reliable with quotes, form of Gust in this format, which of course did require a coin flip. But we are going to see the Sonic Boom here from this Yanmega Prime. Since both players do have the same number of cards in hand, you would notice that Yanmega could actually attack for free with its Insight Pokebody. And Kyle off to a roaring start with the first KO here, and Evan going to fire off a Professor Juniper, discard and draw 7 with just this Machoke in the active, and not too much else going on Evan's side. Definitely want to be seeing some more basics established, but instead we are just going to see a Rainbow Energy attached to this Machoke. It is just barely out of range of a Sonic Boom with 90 total HP, now 80 with that Rainbow putting the damage on it, and we see a Knuckle Down from that Machoke. And here's the PlusPower, and Judge will match the hand size, so Kyle is able to bench out Evan and take a very quick game in our round 1. Well, with how quick of a game that first one was, we did actually have both players agree to play another game for the content, of course, both players being content creators themselves, and I will, of course, link their channels in the description below so you can check out their channels as well. But they did agree to play another game for the content, and I was very appreciative of that. But of course, this one, or the last one, will count toward the round, so Kyle will actually take that one and move to 1-0 in the tournament overall. But they are playing another one for fun here, and Evan starting with that Phanpy and going first. Kyle also starting with the Cleffa, as I alluded to last game, and a Phanpy of their own. Evan dropping down that Machop, looking for something like a Pokemon collector, additional Pokemon, but not going to see any of that. Evan just shipping the turn back over without any other cards played. And Kyle going to get their turn started off with a Rainbow Energy to that Phanpy and the Professor Oak's new theory, affectionately called Pont, which I will definitely be calling it throughout the rest of this showcase, so get used to that one. There is a Zorua coming down, so we might be seeing some Zoroark in this game. using that foul play attack to copy your opponent's attacks. Very, very fun attack. Of course, this Stage 1's deck is kind of a toolbox deck, so it has many different attackers, many different options for different matchups. And we see a Yanma come down as well into the Eek from that Cleffa. And Kyle going to shuffle and draw 6 cards. The Cleffa is now asleep and actually will stay asleep. So now, thanks to its Poke Body, it will not be able to take any damage this turn since it is asleep. Much like the original Cleffa from back in the Neo era, this one is very similar to that. A little bit different. You are actually able to attack. You just can't actually attack into the Cleffa itself and deal any damage to it. But you are still able to attack without a coin flip, unlike the original Cleffa, thankfully. But Evan going to continue their turn, does get a Donphan Prime out. And this will be one of the main attackers. This is actually just a very reliable attacker in this format. It does have the Earthquake attack, which is just a 1 energy attack that does 60 damage and 10 to all of your bench Pokemon, which will actually set up the future Machamp from Evan. It has an attack called the Champ Buster, which will do 100 damage plus 10 more damage for each of your benched Pokemon with any damage counters on them. So great synergy there with that Donphan actually damaging your own Pokemon to great effect. And of course, these rainbows as well will have the similar effect. And we see Evan attaching the rainbow there to that Donphan, but definitely not wanting to attack into this Cleffa since it wouldn't do anything. You would only succeed in damaging your own Pokemon at that point. And we see the turn pass over, and Kyle immediately flip heads on the sleep check for that Cleffa. Classic tails heads flip. And going to be able to use the Cleffa again, or even retreat out of it since it does have free retreat, which we see here. And going to be using Yanmega's Sonic Boom, since they both presumably have the same number of cards in hand, going to use that Sonic Boom into that Donphan, and will only do 50 damage thanks to Donphan's Exoskeleton Poke Body, which does reduce damage dealt to it by 20. And going to go back to Evan's turn, has a PlusPower, and looking for some more bench Pokemon at this point. Probably want some more Machops down if you can. Pretty much any additional Pokemon at this point would be pretty good, but we do have at least this Machoke on the bench, which is getting one step closer to that Machamp, which is definitely going to be something that Evan is going to want to get into play. But then it does get interesting with the Zoroark on the bench, which can eventually, or the Zorua, which will turn into a Zoroark, which could eventually use that foul play. And we do see the Machamp Prime getting taken off of that Pokemon communication, so that might be coming down at some point soon. And Evan is going to be able to hit into this Yanmega. Of course, Yanmega does have fighting resistance, so this PlusPower actually is pretty important, meaning that Evan will be able to two-shot this Yanmega through the resistance, dealing 70 damage this turn. 70 damage reduced by 20 is down to the 50, so we'll need to find an additional PlusPower, or 2 next turn actually, to be able to take the knockout. And you see the power of things like resistance and the Exoskeleton Poke Body being able to kind of reduce damage here and there, force your opponents to play extra things like PlusPowers and Junk Arms to get the PlusPowers. And of course, we do see a Junk Arm right there, using that Pokemon communication to go and fetch out the Zoroark that I have mentioned. And this is a pretty good spot for Kyle, actually going to go right into that Zoroark and use Foul Play to copy Heavy Impact, which will deal 90 damage, minus the 20, 70 plus the 60 is 130, to knock out that Donphan. And again, this is kind of the toolbox power of this Stage 1's deck. In action, you're seeing multiple different attackers employed pretty much back-to-back every turn at this stage. No pun intended. And it is just Evan with the Machamp Prime here. Does have a couple Machops down. I believe that Machop on the bench with damage on it was in play last turn, so could also evolve that guy up. And we're seeing the double Colorless energy attach and a Crushing Punch, which will take out that Zoroark thanks to the fighting weakness. And both players down to 5 prizes. And onto Kyle's turn, firing off that Pokemon Collector, getting a Phanpy, a Zorua, maybe another Yanma would be nice. There it is. And again, you see the power of this Stage 1's deck, just kind of having an answer to pretty much anything that your opponent can throw out there. Just really efficient attackers, most of them attacking for 1 or 0 energy in the case of the Yanmega. And here comes the Donphan. Again, we saw the power of it on Evan's side, but we're going to see it again, firing off that Earthquake for Kyle. The bench damage in this case is not quite as favorable for Kyle. This actually does matter, unlike with Evan, where it matters to the benefit of that Machamp. It actually is not ideal for Kyle, but still just good to put some damage onto this Machamp and threaten really Evan's only attacking threat at this point. And we do see a Pokemon reversal fired off here. It is Tails. See a Pokemon Collector. I'm wondering what Evan might have been bringing up with that reversal. Probably something like the Zorua, maybe, since that is probably the most threatening thing to Evan's board. But we'll never find out due to the Tails on that reversal. We see a Bouffalant come down, which is more of a revenge attacker, does have that synergy with double colorless energy. Of course, Evan attaching a fighting energy to it probably doesn't have access to that double colorless at this point. And we see a Crushing Punch, which actually will discard that special energy, that rainbow energy from the Donphan, in addition to doing 40 damage. So that does help kind of set Kyle back a little bit. And I'm not sure how many switch cards this Stage 1's deck plays, but that Donphan does have a 4 retreat cost, so it will be sitting in the active and not really going anywhere anytime soon. So just going to sit in the active and use another Earthquake, dealing more bench damage to Kyle's bench and another 60 damage to the active Machamp. But Evan has gotten some pretty good value out of this Machamp thus far. Would certainly love to, well, looks like Evan is going to scoop it up, and we are actually going to see a third game. Evan did check how much time was left in the round and decided to play another quick game. Just trying to, again, get some good content. I think Evan was kind of in a not so favorable position in that game. Definitely didn't really have any super established board behind that first Machamp, so I think it was kind of inevitable that Machamp was going to go down, and Kyle would have potentially just kind of gone through Evan's board after a little bit more. And I think Evan just really wanted to show off this deck doing what it's supposed to do. Can't fault them for wanting to, show off your deck on when you get the chance to feature it like this. And again, much appreciate both players being good sports and just wanting to do what they can for the content. It is very appreciated. And Kyle actually going to start off with a Flicked Pokemon Collector, just kind of flinging it on the board like that. Love to see it. It is your ideal turn 1 supporter. And of course, both players did get that turn 1 Collector, which is ideal for both of them. Starting with this Bouffalant, however, on Evan's side is not the ideal. Did get an energy attachment to it, but it is not really the main starter that you want in this deck, especially since it is weak to fighting, and that Donphan in future turns from Kyle could very easily take that out for 1 energy on this next turn even. So see another Pokemon Collector from Evan. Already having your board established here is great if you're Evan. You already have the Machoke down as well. Definitely would love to maybe get this Bouffalant out of the active, maybe into something like that Cleffa, if you could. I don't know if this deck plays that many switch cards, though. And I guess you could just kind of let it get knocked out and just build up your big threats behind it, which might just be what happens here, since it is just going to go down to this Donphan. We see the Rainbow Energy committed to that, as well as a Yanmega on the bench, and there is the Earthquake to take the quick knockout on the Bouffalant. Kyle going down to 5 prizes, and this is, again, a pretty quick back and forth. I don't know but necessarily that the matchup itself is a quick back and forth, but the Stage 1's deck really is just kind of a quick, just take early knockouts if you can, 2-shot the big threats, have a lot of options, a lot of attacking threats to respond to what your opponent is doing. It's a very responsive, reactive kind of deck, but also able to put out that early initiative with the Donphan. And we see that reversal from Evan. Did get a heads this time. Going to bring up the Cleffa. And we'll see if Evan has... There it is. It takes the word right out of my mouth. We do have the Donphan coming down from Evan and going to take a knockout of their own with that Earthquake. And again, this time setting up some damage on the bench. And you'll notice there's a Reshiram on Evan's bench, which also will synergize very well with the bench damage from this Donphan. It does actually deal more damage depending on how many damage counters are on it for a single DCE attachment. And something that can also just kind of have a basic attacking threat for a DCE and somewhere to kind of relevantly put that damage from the Donphan. We see 4 cards in hand for Evan, so Kyle is going to want to match that if we're trying to attack with this Yanmega. We do see a heads on the Pokemon reversal, bringing up that Machamp, and there it is, the hand match to activate Insight, and a Sonic Boom for 70 damage, and kind of stranding this Machamp in the active now. It does have a 3 retreat cost, but we will probably see at some point this fighting tag from Machamp does actually have a relevant Poke Power, but instead this time we're actually going to see the Junk Arm first switch and a Pont able to shuffle and draw 6 cards, much like that Cleffa that is brought into the active. And we see the Donphan come down as well. So this game, Evan really setting up their board, has all of the evolutions now established, has that Reshiram as well. And here comes the Donphan to put out some damage on that Yanmega. Of course, the fighting resistance does knock it down to just 40 damage. So not really in range of a 2-shot from this Donphan, unfortunately. But at least getting some damage out does kind of help things and advance Evan's board, and also put the extra damage on into play, which does add up quickly. We see that Cleffa already has 2 damage counters on it, so Evan might not want to attack with another Earthquake in future turns if it can be avoided, but there is the Pont into another Sonic Boom, able to match the hand size and hit this Donphan for some more damage there. And we see another Pokemon Collector from Evan. Probably not the ideal supporter at this point, might just be thinning out the deck. And I think you really just want more energy attachments at this point if you're Evan. There really aren't that many energies in play, but here we do see the fighting tag. So it is going to move that Machamp into the active and move all fighting energy in play to it. And we do have the energy attachment into a Champ Buster from that Machamp. So this is kind of the power, the full power of this Machamp deck in action. It does get to bring itself into the active, attach energy that had been spread out across the board, and take that big knockout thanks to the damage on all of your bench Pokemon from that Champ Buster. And on Kyle's turn, we do have 3 energy attached to the Donphan, which you don't see too often. It is often used for that Earthquake attack, but this time able to get 3 energy on it and use the Heavy Impact for 90 damage. Not a play you see too often, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. If you're Kyle, just put some damage on this big, beefy Machamp that does have 150 HP. And at this point, it's a little awkward. I don't think Kyle was able to find a Zoroark and a DCE to be able to copy the Champ Buster, which would have been ideal, but we weren't able to see that. So we will have Evan using this Champ Buster again to just clear off that Donphan with the 3 energy on it. And now Kyle has no energy in play, really scrambling to find another attacker, and we're just looking for Zoroark DCE at this point to take the revenge KO. There's the DCE. Do we see the Zoroark? There's the Zoroark, so we do have the revenge knockout lined up with that foul play, but what else do we have behind this if you're Kyle? Looks like nothing else. So there is the foul play, copying either a Crushing Punch or Champ Buster. Either will take the knockout, take your pick. And Evan going to promote the Cleffa, has another Machop ready to go on the bench, as well as a Rainbow Energy. So kind of just firing on all cylinders for Evan. This is exactly what they were looking for those first 2 games. But finally able to show off what their deck is capable of. And here comes the Donphan with that another Earthquake. Does knock out their own Cleffa, but I think at this point you were just kind of putting yourself so far ahead on board position that it doesn't really matter if you give up an extra prize card. So, and also Evan is still ahead in prizes regardless. So here is a Rainbow Energy attachment to the Phanpy, looking for a Donphan of Kyle's own to at least kind of stabilize the board behind perhaps. Here is a Pokemon reversal that is off the table, and Tails this time as well. Another Pokemon reversal, another Tails. That is a classic 2011 experience right there. And here is the judge. Only going to see 4 cards to find this Donphan if you're Kyle. And you're kind of really needed in this position. Otherwise, you might just be blown out from here. And yep, Kyle not able to find it. And Evan will take this one. But of course, Kyle does take the round overall. And moving on to 1-0 with this Stage 1's box.